Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of WST Sunday Live. My name is Hrabchak. Today I'm joined by Lyss, Houde, and we've got a super fun show today. I always tell Lyss and Jacob off the air that the Saturday games into the Sunday show are my favorite shows. How about a Saturday game into a Sunday game? And we're right sandwiched in the middle of it. So we've got a ton to talk about. Before we get into it, nice to see everyone in chat here Sunday at 9 a.m. Ian Wilson, Jay Miller, Matt Hyman, Stacy, Les Thompson, Chris Lev, all you great WSTers in the chat. Thanks for joining us. And Lyss, you had a pretty crazy weekend. How you doing?
I did, yeah. I'm doing well. I am happy to be here. I am a little bit tired. I woke up this time yesterday. I was in the beautiful state of New Jersey, and I had an extremely longer than it needed to be travel day, 2 flights, pretty long layover in the middle, plus a delay on the second one. So ended up being a pretty long day. But as it turns out, I landed in Ottawa at 3:55 Eastern time, right? So right before the start of the Jets game. And then I was able to watch the entire thing right from my iPad in the airport. So the layover timing was perfect. Didn't get home till, 10:30 p.m. or whatever. And then went out afterwards because I'm an idiot. So, but it was a long day, but it was, so worth it because I had a really awesome weekend in Jersey.
Yeah, and before we get into the Jets talk, I do have the photo here of you met someone pretty important over the weekend, so I'll bring it up.
I did meet someone pretty important over the weekend. I got to meet, for those of you who are unfamiliar with who this iconic woman in the turtleneck is, because that's her look at this point. Jessica Campbell was also at the conference that I was at. Was able to snag a picture with her, which is pretty awesome. I first full-time female NHL coach, right, which is pretty sick. She runs the Seattle Kraken power play. So getting to meet her and then go to the Devils Kraken game afterwards and watch the Seattle Kraken score power play goal was pretty damn cool. So it was definitely a highlight of the weekend for me.
It was the Lyss WST Sunday Live bump. Meeting her in person, you just knew the power play was going to score.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that is so cool. Just wanted to highlight that to start off the show today because saw that on your Twitter account there. I thought that was pretty cool. Let's get into it, though. The Winnipeg Jets yesterday afternoon, like you said, 3:55 Eastern, started that game at 3 against the Chicago Blackhawks and came away with a 4-2 win after the empty netter, Mason Appleton, at the end. I just want to start our discussion of this game with this Nino Niederreiter quote because I think it's very, very important. This was the first and second question to Nino Niederreiter in the post-game scrum. He played a great game. So did that line. We'll break it all down here. But here's what he had to say to start his post-game press conference.
I think we just stuck with it and stuck with our game plan. I feel like there was times we weren't at our best, but we knew we just got to make sure we outwork them. And I think that's the first time in a while, which I feel like we outwork the other team.
What enabled you to hold them to so few shots on goal?
I think we were, for the most part, very smart with the puck. We didn't give them any room in the inside. I think that's something which helped us a lot tonight.
It was the first time in a while where I felt like we outworked the other team. Lyss, did you see it that way as well?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games that you go online, you start talking to people, and everyone's going to say the same thing, right? It's the Chicago Blackhawks. And I completely understand that, but this is the same team that beat the defending Stanley Cup champions in the Florida Panthers a couple weeks ago, like 5-0 or something like that, right? Like, on any given night, yes, there are odds. There's the money line. There's the spread of who we can bet on, who's the favorite. Anyone can beat anyone in one game in the National Hockey League. So I don't always put too much stock into that. And the Jets don't control who they play. They were in a little bit of a rough patch, snuck out a win in Buffalo earlier in the week on Thursday, which is, in my opinion, usually how you get out of those losing streaks. Rarely do you see a long losing streak with a team and all of a sudden they come out with a dominant performance and win. No, usually it's they come out and they have a game where, some things go their way, they're able to push, they're able to keep it nice and tight, and then they're able to come up with the win and get that motivation and get that momentum going forward. And that's exactly what we saw from the Jets. And I thought they knocked it out of the park yesterday. I completely agree with Nino Niederreiter that, they made the Chicago Blackhawks look like an AHL team. And some people will say because they are one. I disagree. They have a lot of good players on that team. And though they are under a new head coach right now and they haven't had a lot of success this year, nor do I expect them to, it was a good game for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, and sometimes teams get that new coaching bump, and maybe you saw that in the first period. That was easily the closest period because the second and third were not even close. Just a quick note on this game. I do want to bring it up because I tweeted it out last night.
Yeah, you had some
went
good
to the
numbers
Moose
in the game.
game.
It was nuts.
Yeah, I went to the Moose game, so I wasn't able to look at, the underlying numbers and get like a second thought on the game till after. But here, I tweeted this out. The Jets only allowed 14 shots, as we know, 2 high danger chances against, which is also unheard of, but 0.81 expected goals against per natural stat trick.
That's insane.
It's the second lowest all strengths expected goals against allowed in a single game this season, only trailing Boston against Vancouver a few weeks ago, or November 26th, 0.78 expected goals against. So it's very close, right? Yeah. It's the Jets' lowest expected goals amount of the season. Their previous high was against the team that they're playing today, Columbus, on the road there, 1.44. So that's a big swing. That was their best defensive performance of the season. And like you said, it's the Blackhawks. They're the 32nd ranked team. Some people will say they're an AHL team. I get it, but that's still an NHL roster. Like, you still see Connor Bedard with 2 minutes left absolutely walk around Nino Niederreiter and Mason Appleton and come flying into this. Like, there's still talent on this roster, right? And that was just one of the best defensive performances I've seen from the Jets in a long time, regardless of opponent. And someone brought it up early here. Jay Miller, the Lowry line was a force last night. The forecheck was unreal. Nino Niederreiter saying that, that was the first time it felt like we outworked a team in a while. The Lowry line was the leader of that, because if there was any doubt in the first period, they kind of ended those doubts. Lowry with a huge hit on Taylor Hall. They were cycling the puck. They were moving it. It was a great game from that line. Lyss.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the comment that I want to bring up is from Choices TK here about saying that it's hard to take a lot away from that game. I don't entirely agree, but I agree with the second part of the comment here that it's a bad Hawks team and a lot of open ice. And I think that was what we saw in the Winnipeg Jets. Like, when you're playing against a team like the Blackhawks, you have a little bit more time to make your decisions, a little bit more time to execute, and you just have a little bit more space to make creative offensive plays, and not just that, but manage the other team really well. And like you said, it was the Winnipeg Jets' best defensive performance in quite some time, and it was because they were able to manage that open space really well, in my opinion. I thought kind of top to bottom, everyone had like a decent game, and it's one of those things where I don't have necessarily the numbers pulled up. I would venture to say that the fourth line was probably the weakest line in that game. And it's the sort of thing where they've had performances in the last couple of weeks where they've been the strongest by far. So, my ideal situation for this team is for every team to be, every line to be playing at their best, but that's not going to happen every night. And in a game like this, where, you have one team kind of leading the way, one line leading the way, and then another line is able to capitalize a little more. We saw Mark Scheifele goal, which is really, really awesome. Gabe Vilardi as well. So that's exactly the recipe for team success. And, for Nino Niederreiter, yes, he did get that goal, but even if he didn't, he opened up a lot of space and really tired out the other team for his, other line, teammates to really take advantage of that.
Absolutely. There's a lot of love for Brad Lambert in the chat. So we did want to talk about him. Let's accelerate that and bring him up now. I mean, starting, why not? Why not? That second line, like Choices TK says here, they were in the Hawks zone all night long. It was fun to watch that line with Perfetti, Lambert, and Nemesnikov. The Jets' second line, if you want to call it. I think the Lowry line had more even strength minutes. But having said that, Brad Lambert has now played 3 games with Nikolai Ehlers on injured reserve. Nikolai Ehlers, they said, would be out 7 to 10 days. That still puts him a few days away here from potentially skating and maybe being in a non-contact jersey at practice, things of that nature. But what have you seen from Brad Lambert in his first 3 games here, and more specifically yesterday against the Chicago Blackhawks, which I think all of us can agree on was his best game to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Brad's, looked awesome. I know that there's a little bit of nerves coming in, and he said it himself, like, no one's going to try and and say anything otherwise. But it's interesting. I almost want to talk a little bit more about Perfetti and Nemestikov, because I think Perfetti is a player that right when Ehlers was getting injured, we were starting to see, as you would have seen last week, he was our trending up player, right? He had finally kind of broken the seal on, getting a goal in there and everything like that. I think it's worked out really well for him and Nemestikov to bring a player in while he is different from Nikolai Ehlers. He plays at a similar NHL speed to Nikolai Ehlers. So I think it's been able to help that line continue with the momentum that they were starting to pick up. Oftentimes when you have skilled lines and one guy gets injured and they have to replace him with someone else, you sort of see that momentum and chemistry shift because, well, 33% of your line is gone. Like, I completely understand that. But I think all in all, the line as a whole has been impressive. And it's because Brad Lambert is able to come in and just play with that NHL heads up speed. It's not just the speed, right? Like, watch him skate. Like, his neck is snapped at 90 degrees at all times, right? Like, that head is up and he is looking to make the most heads up play possible. A couple of real close ones. We all saw that open net last night that he almost was able to score on. It would have been so nice for him to get that first one there. But he's looked basically like I would have expected him to look, which is fast regardless. You're never going to take that away from him. And he's starting to get a little bit more skillful, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident. I think he's looked awesome. And I think bringing him in at center was the right call. Moving Nemestikov over to the wing, I think Nemestikov knows his role in the team at this point, and it's really to be that supporting cast member for some of the other players, and he's doing exactly that. Giving Brad Lambert the opportunity to play the Mark Scheifele center in the system, I think has been really, really good for him as well.
Yeah, and one play I want to highlight, which was pretty inconsequential to the outcome of the game, like it was just a shot on goal for Lambert. That's what it goes down as anyways. But there's this play where the puck is running up the wall and Nemestikov chips it to the middle and Lambert is like coming with speed and he just burns the defenseman. Well, not like burns like on a breakaway, but he's just so much faster. And he gets to the top of the circles, gets a good shot off. Soderblom at the time makes the blocker save. I mean, that's the speed. Like, you just see it. And like you said, you're not going to take that away from him. That's his number one asset. But let's get to Scott O'Neill, what he had to say about that missed wide open net for Brad Lambert. That absolutely stung. But also Lambert's ability to kind of get up to speed here over these last 3 games.
Brad Lambert obviously missed a couple of good chances, but it seemed like he was a little bit more involved.
Yeah, he missed a gigantic one. He'll be having nightmares about that one, that wide open net. But like I said, he's been, every game. It's hard for young players. I mean, it wasn't like he got to start the season with us in game 1 and gradually grow. He's kind of grown while the water's running fast, and he's been doing a pretty good job of that.
And that last comment there about how he's growing with the team while they're in the middle of this, like, not tough part of the schedule, strength of competition wise, but they're playing every other night. They're playing a back-to-back 3 and 4 nights here. And he's getting better with every game. And that's all you can really ask out of 20-year-old players, right? Making their season debut. So I've been really impressed with Brad Lambert. And yesterday, especially, I thought him and Cole Perfetti had some really nice plays together. I hate to ask this, but with Nikolai Ehlers set to return soon, I mean, do you think there's any chance that he stays?
I think that's a really great question. And I've been thinking about that too, because it's the sort of thing where when it comes to prospect and their development and everything, right? I wonder what kind of conversation they had with him early and everything like that, because they say, Nick's only going to be out for a while. We're going to call you up. You're going to play 4 games. Thank you so much, Cabells. I really appreciate that comment, because I agree. I actually have a gray one that looks a lot like Renee's too. So maybe if the Jets, crush the Montreal
Let's make this a
Canadiens
Lyss's headband version of WST Sunday Live. I don't have the music though. But anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
Like, maybe they had that conversation with him. They're like, hey dude, up you come, you're getting 4 games and then down you go, sort of thing. But they can't do that 8 times this season, right? Like, so what happens if all of a sudden, and God forbid, right? You don't wish this on anyone. We're just talking hypothetical here. Mark Scheifele actually does have to miss some time, and Mark Scheifele is out next week. And then, Brad Lambert comes back for a few more games. And then all of a sudden someone else gets hurt. And then all of a sudden you get into that yo-yoing that nobody really wants in the key prime time of a prospect's development. So I'm assuming the plan was always, and it was communicated to him, that this was a short-term stint, whatever sort of thing. But I wonder what the plan is should there be another injury at the forward court, because frankly, it's impossible to expect that everyone will be healthy all season. I don't know. I think he's going to go back down.
I think so too, but I agree with you that I think, and who brought it up here? AJ brought it up that this was the perfect time to bring him in, have him build some confidence.
1,000%.
Because
it worked out perfectly.
Later in the season, they might need him. Like they might genuinely need him. They might be healthy and still, think that they lack foot speed or anything along those lines, and wanna call him up and maybe play a depth role down the stretch, right? I think I was really, really shocked when they called up Brad Lambert and put Ehlers on injured reserve, because typically, and we discussed this on Monday's edition of on the Big Show on Winnipeg Sports Talk, typically the Jets are an organization where they send a player up, they don't want to see them go back down, right? They want, that's it. They're up in the NHL, they're growing up there. That's the thing. So that's when I was texting you and Jacob in our group chat saying, I think this means Ehlers is out long term. Turns out it's only 7 to 10 days. We'll see.
Which is what I thought. So, McDonald's breakfast on you.
Yeah, there we go.
In hindsight, it's a bet now that I won. Now it's a bet. It wasn't before, but
it wasn't. But now it is. Okay, sweet. But yeah, like it's really interesting that the Jets chose to do that this time rather than the other times where they haven't done that, and that Brad Lambert went straight into the second line center role. I think the stylistic, the speed element played a big role in that. Like they lost so much speed with Nikolai Ehlers, so they felt they had to replace that.
And they like to play fast. They really do.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And I do think that this was a great time to bring him up. And hey, I'd still like to see him with Nikolai Ehlers, moving at the same pace. I think that would be. Do you agree?
It'll be interesting. And also, I just need to defend myself super quick here. This is not like a Rennie challenge, guys. I didn't have time to wash my hair yesterday. Like I am not. I swear. Yeah. But and then I was like, the black matches the sweater. We'll go with it. So don't worry about me. But if Kenny wants to duel, I'm always down. Or pardon me, if Rennie wants to duel, I'm always up for a fight. But I think my question would more just be like, who do you move down in the lineup? Like my pick is Nemestikov every day of the week. Like, I'm not trying to knock the guy, but he was playing on the fourth line last year and he's been awesome. He has really been up to task, in my opinion. He's done what the team has needed him to do, which is the most important part of being on a team is filling that role. But so would you move Nemestikov down and then like scratch Barron or something? Or like, what would you do?
Because Kupari's been good.
Kupari has been good. I am a Kupari defender. That's my 13th forward for Team Finland.
There you go. Yeah, we'll talk about the Four Nations rosters later on and some snubs. There you go. Rasmus Kupari. No, but credit to the Jets coaching staff, I think, goes out for this Rasmus Kupari kind of resurgence of like this forechecking, penalty killing, like defensive minded role. Yeah, penalty drawing. Yes.
Yeah.
The penalty differential from the fourth line has been great, but Kupari last year, I don't remember being such an effective forechecker. And then he had the no goals. So it was like, he has all this skill and he's not producing. This year, he still only has, he has 2 goals now. But I mean, the forecheck is just so much more evident with that fourth line. It's really benefiting the Jets because you can put the third line out there. That they're going to forecheck the other team into oblivion and then follow it up with the fourth line and they're not going to skip a beat.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the recipe that the Jets want. It follows the more traditional top 6, third line, bottom line sort of structure. But you think about it, right? Where the third and fourth line, while they do have some skill and they can certainly, score some goals. I kind of got flamed for my take on Twitter yesterday where I was talking about like the Nino Niederreiter goal where I was like, holy smokes, like these sorts of plays remind me that everyone can score these goals. And Nick Lynham from Top Line Media was like, Nino literally has 720 goal seasons. I was like, I get that. But it's still, that's a Jack Hughes goal right there, right? Like, it's definitely, so they can do those sorts of things. We've seen Lowry have a couple of really nice ones too and everything. Mason Appleton had like a couple snipes early in the season. Like, I get it. They can do that sort of thing. But out comes the third line and physically exhausts you, right? Like very tough on the body. They're pretty good at possessing the puck and they possess the puck with aggression, which is, really, really awesome. Tires of the team. Fourth line also tires of the team, but in a little bit of a different way. Like again, really, really aggressive forecheck and also pretty speedy, whatever. And so that kind of shifts the game a little bit. And then you bring out your top 2 lines who now with Brad Lambert in particular have a lot of speed down the middle and have some guys who are kind of more trailing who could be the playmakers. Like that's exhausting. if you have to play against that team every single, like, all 4 lines are coming out and they're exhausting you in their own special way. And that's why I think, in my opinion, the Winnipeg Jets have had some good third period success this year when they've been playing well, is that those bottom lines are doing exactly what they need to do, which is exhaust the other team. And all of a sudden, we talk about this hockey as a game of managing the open space and the white ice. There's a little bit more white ice in the offensive zone, and we know what this team can do when they have a little bit of extra space. We've seen it on the power play. We've seen it with their most elite guys, right? So I think that's the archetype they should be going for, and I think they're starting to realize, and I'm not saying this is a realization that I had long before them. I'm not saying they need to, hire me as head coach of this team by any means, but they're addressing the skill set that exists in this team. I think Alex Iafallo is a relentless player. I really actually have liked him this season and everything. So I think they're seeing who they have and how they can use what they have. And it's in progress, but I think we're seeing flashes of what this team needs to do.
And last year as well, that is something that we said the Jets were really good at, was wearing teams down and then dominating third periods. Like when they were first through the winter break, I remember that game. They're playing Boston this week, so I'm reminded of that game going into the break against Boston.
Second last year, I remember that,
where they just rolled them. Like that game just was, and Boston was a really good team at the time, and they just rolled them. And when people throw out the term that a team is hard to play against, these are the things that make a team hard to play against. When they're physical, they dominate the walls, dominate on the cycle. They're all over you when you're trying to make simple D-to-D passes in your zone. Like there's nothing free on the Winnipeg Jets, and we saw that yesterday. Like I said, the stat I brought up earlier, 0.81 expected goals against, their best performance of the season defensively. Pretty impressive stuff. Just to wrap kind of a bow on the Brad Lambert discussion, I do just want to say that they outshot their opponents 9-4 last night at 5-on-5. That was the Lowry line. They attempted their opponents 11-2 at 5-on-5 last night. That was the awesome Lambert, Perfetti, Nemeskov line, and outchanced their opponents 4-0. So They had their best game of the last 3 as well. I know that Brad Lambert was kind of put on the 4th line in the 3rd period the other night against who did they beat? Buffalo. But I do think that Brad Lambert and that line showing chemistry at 5-on-5, and they're primed for a big game, honestly, at some point here on the score sheet, because they didn't get on the score sheet yesterday. All right, let's move on. The Jets are the Winnipeg. The Jets are the Winnipeg. The Jets
are the Winnipeg. Follow for more.
Yes, exactly. The Winnipeg Jets are the first team to 20 wins. That is what I'm trying to say in the NHL this season. So now's a good time to kind of big picture this thing, see where we're at with the Winnipeg Jets. Lyss, where are you at? First team to 20 wins. They went 3-7 over that stretch, and they're still the first team to 20 wins. They don't have any overtime losses. That really helps. Where are you at with the Jets? 20 wins.
I don't know, man. Like I have so many different opinions, and they sometimes conflict each other, whatever. And I personally would not have it any other way. It keeps things exciting. It makes you feel like every single game you can learn so much from it. And frankly, you can. Like I have been sat for every single game this season, just, interested to see what continues to develop and what doesn't and everything like that. But first and foremost, like you said, 3-7 in that stretch and still the first team to 20 wins. The NHL has 32 not super great teams this year. Like I'm dead serious. They are not all the same, but there's no juggernaut this year. The Winnipeg Jets are not a juggernaut, in my opinion. They are a very good hockey team. I think they have a lot of really good pieces, not a juggernaut. This is not the Boston Bruins of the President's Trophy year, right? Like not even close. But I think, I don't know, my takeaway from this team is that they are trending in the right direction in the sense of they have a goaltender that can win them games. And if they make it so that he doesn't have to win them every game, they'll be in a better position. So like, for example, when the season started, the Jets were 3-0 to start the season, obviously. First game was a complete smackdown of the Edmonton Oilers. And then they go on to win 2 games in overtime against the Blackhawks and the Wild, if I remember correctly. Both of those coming with late goals to tie it and then winning in overtime. Connor Hellebuyck won them those games, and they used that skill to get, a couple good pucks in at the right times, whatever. And then they started playing a better team game. Connor Hellebuyck had some more off nights. They allowed Eric Carmi to play a couple games, whatever. And so the ebb and flow of that, I really like, because frankly, you have the best goaltender in the world. It's okay to lean on him a little bit. He's making $3.5 million less than Igor Shesterkin is, because, you know, that makes sense. I am intrigued by this team. I think there are some really, really good things going on, and I think they're not leaning too heavily on Connor Hellebuyck, which is not something I can say for many Winnipeg Jets of old teams. Right. So I think they are the best team in the NHL. Jury's still out on that. I can't necessarily say that for sure, because there are teams that I think are better than them, but all in all, like, they have shown to me a little bit more this year. They have a little bit more dog in them, which is really, really good, because that's the big question mark that everyone had around the team. And the elite players are still the elite players, and some of them are still heating up a little bit, right? Like Gabe Vilardi is heating up, and Mark Scheifele still needs to heat up a little bit. And Josh Morrissey is, you know, has been playing really well until he's having to play like 25 minutes a night or whatever sort of thing. But when playing a regular role, he's been really good, right? Like, everyone has been good, but not punching too high above their weight class that it's going to regress like so crazy down. Like, no one's scoring at a 60 goal pace right now this early in the season, and you just know they're going to cool off, right? So it's nice to see that they will still likely trend up in a lot of different ways, and they're playing consistently enough in a lot of areas to make you feel confident in that assessment.
Yeah, and I think the Jets season so far can kind of be divided up into different sections. There's the pre-Toronto loss where, like you said, I think they were leaning on Connor Hellebuyck a little too much. They got pretty lucky with some overtime wins, some late goals to tie those games, but they were winning every game. They were 7-0 going into that Toronto game, right? And then they lose the Toronto game, and Jacob Stoller brought this up on one of the past Sunday live shows, but after that Toronto game, they went on an 8-game winning streak and beat really good teams, and like convincingly
and crushed really good teams too. Like, so absolutely.
Like, they weren't leaning on Connor Hellebuyck. They were actually dominating Dallas and all these good teams, right? And Colorado, that game was a little bit closer, but you get my point.
And then also when they play against the rougher teams, like Columbus, for example, you brought up that game, destroyed them, right? Like,
and then I think the next section, and maybe we're just leaving that section, is the Samberg and Ehlers injuries section, where they go 3-7, they lose a top 4 defenseman and a top 6 winger. Now I think, you know, Ehlers isn't back, but the Jets yesterday, I think, even though it was against the Chicago Blackhawks with that obvious caveat, asterisk, whatever you want to call it, played really well. And I think you can take that into today's game against Columbus, into Tuesday's game against Boston, a team that struggled out of the gate, still in a playoff spot, still good. We know that they're good. Vegas on Thursday, you get another crack at them. So I think that the Samberg and Ehlers injuries really hurt this team. Yeah. And sometimes you see, you know, tweets from out of market that, oh, the Jets are regressing. Well, how many teams can you take?
Okay, James Myrtle. James Myrtle.
Sorry, had to. But how often can you take maybe the third most impactful defenseman on a team and, I don't know, a top 3 impact forward? Like, the Jets power play looks kind of lost without Nikolai Ehlers, you know, on the entry and in the bumper. I know Cole Perfetti's filling in that role, but those are 2 massive losses. And if the Jets did start bleeding points, which they did, it wouldn't be a surprise, in my opinion. Like, yeah, they went 3-7 because they lost Samberg and Ehlers and had to adjust on the fly. And maybe now we're kind of coming out of that, and the Jets are finally going to be home for more than a game for the first time in a month, starting today. So, but do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think the other thing is that, like, specifically this most recent section or whatever, like, this is a team that's been together for a long time now, and they brought in guys, whatever. Ehlers and Samberg didn't miss a game last year, right? If I'm correct in that.
Ehlers played the full year.
Ehlers played the full year for the first time in quite some time.
Or Samberg.
If Samberg did miss a game, it was something very brief and tweaked. Like, he definitely didn't miss more than like 5. Because remember, like, last year there was no injuries. There were no injuries to that decor, right?
So he might have been rotated out or something.
Exactly, yeah. Who knows? Especially earlier in the season before he really cemented himself in that role. But all that's to say, like, this Winnipeg Jets team, like you said, these really high impact guys, they haven't played without them in a long time, right? So it's an adjustment period. That's okay. I really actually like the way, though, that you kind of chunk those kind of apart, because you're right. Post Toronto loss, and I want to say that the Colorado 1-0 win was the Wednesday following that Monday loss against Toronto. So, like, the first game of that win streak, those 2 games there, and then the Friday, I think, was when they went to Columbus and kicked the
No,
tar out of them?
Colorado,
Or-
Dallas was the same homestand because Dallas was the Super Saturday.
that
here
was
in
that
Winnipeg.
week?
Yeah.
Oh, so the Columbus game was like a couple weeks before that. I don't know. Oh, it was 1 week before that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. All that's to say, yeah, I agree with you that I really do think that early to start the season, the whole thing of like, I always talk about this right at the beginning of the season where it's like Jonathan Kovacevic was leading the league in points, 3 games into the year, right? Like there's always outliers to start the season. Always, always, always. Nico Hischier was the number 1 goal scorer in the league, which Nico Hischier's great. He's not the top goal scorer in the NHL. Let's be real here. And it takes a while for things to kind of smooth themselves out. Cale Makar was the leading defenseman in points within like 5 games. It's like that one sorted itself out a little bit earlier. Not everything does. The Winnipeg Jets win record. In my opinion, team stats are a little bit different than player stats because in order for a team to get super lucky, that means a lot of guys got to get super lucky. So the more likely outcome is actually that a lot of players are playing decent hockey. So I think the Winnipeg Jets rode that luck a little bit early in that stretch and then actually started to hone in on not being the fraud squad post that little stretch there against Toronto and onward. So I think that's a really, really good way to look at it. And it's very interesting. Which era will they be in next? It's giving Eras Tour for sure.
Eras Tour as it comes to an end. That's here on WST Sunday Live. That's what we're breaking down. I do want to say a lot of people in chat, whenever you talk big picture with the Jets, first team to 20 wins, the season as a whole, this question comes up, do they need a winger, a 2C, a top 4 defenseman? What's the biggest need at the trade deadline? I'm not going to throw out a position here. I have a take for this. Whatever position you want, winger, center, defenseman, doesn't matter. The Jets need someone that can play with pace because last year they brought in Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli, 2 of the slower players in the NHL, and hey, effective despite being slow. But they were on the same line a lot of the year, and they tried to put those 2 players with Nikolai Ehlers to add some speed to that line, but that line just got caved in the playoffs by Colorado's speed. I mean, Monahan and Toffoli were too slow. The back end was too slow, and that's why it was just, pun intended, an avalanche of offense for Colorado in the first round. But this year, we haven't looked. It's too early to look because, like we said, there's so much parity in the league. We don't know which teams are going to be in and out come playoff time. I don't know which players would specifically fit this, but the foot speed has to be addressed because when the Jets look bad, they look slow. And that is what they looked bad in the first round last year. They looked very slow against Colorado, and they did nothing to help themselves by acquiring Monahan and Toffoli. I know it's easy to say this in hindsight. I loved both of those moves in the moment, Monahan and Toffoli, but the Jets were just too slow. And I think that whether it's defense or forward, they need foot speed.
Yeah, and I think you just have to be realistic about, who this team is and what they want to do. And Murat had an article about it the other day where he mentioned it, like just that, the way that the Winnipeg Jets play, the center needs to be a fast player. And like you said, I completely agree with you. And it's been very interesting, like trading Rucker McGroarty for Braden Yeager. We understand that there was some politics and everything around that sort of situation, but in the long run, I genuinely believe, even though people thought that Rucker McGroarty might have some Adam Lowry to him, I think Braden Yeager is much more well-positioned to come in and succeed in this organization than Rucker McGroarty is. We've seen what's happened with Cole Perfetti, right? And that's a player who's extremely elite in the other areas, like far and above beyond what Rucker McGroarty was capable of in terms of like playmaking, whatever. And the foot speed is not at the same level as what the Jets want from their forward core. And we've seen how it's impacted these players, right? So I think that's 100% accurate. And I think I would venture to say it's almost more important for the forward core. I'm just coming up with this take now, so I might need a second to think about if that's true or not. But I don't. They can't bring in a slow forward. No chance. If they bring in a forward, they can't. Straight up.
I agree. I think if they were to bring in a forward, I think let me just throw this out. Their bigger need is on the back end, defensively, playing with pace, being able to play physical as well. I threw this out to Jacob, and I probably shouldn't be saying it on the air, but what if Morrissey and Parayko like shred at the Four Nations, and like Colton Parayko is available? Like he's got term till Josh Morrissey's contract would be up. He would play on that top area. He's got size, he's got mobility, can move the puck. I don't know. It's just
Yeah, and Josh Morrissey would bring the offense to that pairing, right? Like that's
yeah.
Colton
And
Parayko's.
Parayko can move the puck and
Yeah.
move his feet. That's the key. Like he's not just big and slow.
Yeah.
He's big, fast, physical, can move the puck. He doesn't have the offensive talent once you get into the offensive zone or playing off the rush or things like that. But
That's fascinating.
he can move. He can move.
You should have brought back Jacob Trouba. Come on.
Okay, whoa.
No, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I just saw the initial pairings, and we will talk about the Four Nations face-off. Yeah,
and they'll do that, right? They'll put the Vegas guys,
Right.
They'll put the Colorado guys, and they'll
then
toss
Morrissey
these
and
guys
Parayko.
together. So
and the future Winnipeg Jets guys. Anyways,
yeah, and then
you
also
go.
like not to be dramatic here, but Colby Barlow's starting to heat up a little bit in the juniors, which is great. Whatever. If the Jets are concerned about pace in the organization, because I think they're starting to realize that too. Like it seems to be like something that they're thinking about, talking about, whatever. Like maybe Colby Barlow's the trade chip, right? Because
Maybe.
that's a player that also lacks foot speed a little bit, and maybe that's
Right.
the guy that you can sort of build a package around to bring in someone like Colton Parayko. Obviously, it would take more than that, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Just throwing that name out there. I want to highlight this comment from Thomas B. Thank you so much. As a Jets fan who lives in Ontario, the WST family of shows are amazing. So many new and refreshing takes and opinions. The old school sports media in Winnipeg. Sky is falling. Well, the sky is not falling here. First team to 20 wins. And
but when it is, trust me when I say, I will be the first to tell you.
Lyss will have that covered. Need a WST event in Ontario. Been both to Buffalo and Detroit for Jets games, and there are a lot of Jets fans. Yeah, last night in Chicago, the broadcast showed a lot of Jets fans as well. Didn't quite hear the True North chant as, you know, the United Center in Chicago there. I mean, it's just the noises are so loud and everyone's so loud during the anthem that you can barely hear it. But yeah, it's that's awesome, Thomas. Thank you for joining us today on this Sunday morning from Ontario. We really appreciate it. But yeah, let's talk. Do you want to get to trending up down now?
Sure, let's do it. Let's do
our
it.
segment. Okay, this is if you weren't here last week, we debuted this segment and we're bringing it back. Trending up or trending down. Now, this is a segment where we outline who or what is trending up or down for the Winnipeg Jets over the past week of play. The rules are simple. Both Lyss and I will each pick something or someone who is trending up and down, and we cannot repeat an answer that has already been said. Another part of this is we can't repeat an answer that was said last week. What was said last week was Perfetti and Heinola for trending up, Josh Morrissey in the top line for trending down. When you say that out loud, it sounds pretty silly, but anyways, the most important rule of this segment is that all of you who have joined us here live on YouTube must hit the chat room and let us know your picks for trending up, trending down. Lyss, I'll let you go first once again. Trending up, who you got this week? Who's trending up for you?
So trending up, I am going to pick Mr. Gabriel Velarde. Gabe Velarde has 2 goals in his last 2 games, which is something that we have wanted to see more from this player. Yesterday's goal, if you don't remember, that was the tip from the Hayden Fleury shot that I just thought was just such a nice, it's Joe Pavelski-esque, right? Like it's just like phenomenal. Definitely not a fluke, not a mistake. Absolutely what the player was intending to do. And he's a guy that if he starts heating up a little bit, brings those hands, brings that, you know, to the power play, and then also at 5-on-5, scoring some goals in the absence of Mark Scheifele having, you know, working hands. And, you know, I think there is some potential for that player to go on a little bit of a tear, whether it's now or later in the season. You know, early in the season when Connor filmed his hot takes video for WST, which was an awesome video he did with Jacob, he was predicting that, you know, Gabe Velarde could crack 40 goals this year, right? Like we know that this player is more than capable of that. So, you know, anytime he could start heating up a little bit, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the top line playing a little bit better. You know, they had a dominant game yesterday. Like Houde saying, Velarde is much more involved in the play. I think he's looked really good this past week, so he gets my trending up.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna copy Jeff Gabilis. No, I had this thought before Jeff. No, I'm kidding. But great minds think alike. I'm gonna go with Hayden Fleury. He's been so great in that top 4. This was a guy who was supposed to be the 7th or 8th defenseman coming into the season, and now he's playing over 20 minutes a night on the Jets' second pair alongside Neil Pionk or Dylan DeMello. There was that change for the Buffalo game there and the early Chicago game. But regardless, Hayden Fleury's been great. Like you said, both of those shots that Velarde is tipped, or I guess the second one was Stanley, but Hayden Fleury's getting a lot of pucks on net from the point right now. The one in the Buffalo game was his shot. I wasn't sure if Velarde tipped that or not. It was originally Fleury's goal. At least the NHL app said that, but then it got changed to Velarde, as we all knew. But Hayden Fleury, supposed to be the 7th or 8th defenseman, I think playing really well in a top 4 role, filling in for Dylan Sandberg. And again, for a guy who was supposed to be a depth defender, this is about as much as you could ask for in a top 4 role. And I think he's a really good skater. And I think that is helping Neil Pionk maybe carry that pairing a little bit. But I've really liked Hayden Fleury over this past week. He's my trending up. Do you want to go first for trending down, or are we doing the snake draft again?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. A lot of people are saying it in chat. I'm going to go Logan Stanley. I mean, I talk about the Jets playing with pace and playing with foot speed, and Logan Stanley just sticks out in that regard. He just is not playing with pace. He's not playing with foot speed. He's not playing with size. He's not playing big. He is big, but he's not playing, he had the fight, the random fight in the one game. I don't know. It's just Logan Stanley on that third pair with Ville Heinola, I think hasn't been playing too well. And I think Colin Miller being in the press box is not icing your best lineup. I believe that, at least. I think Colin Miller is the number 5 on this Jets team. I think him and Ville Heinola would crush it in third pairing minutes. I also think Logan Stanley and Colin Miller would be a better third pair option than what they're currently rolling with in Stanley and Heinola. We'll see who's in the lineup today, second night of a back-to-back. But I'm going to go Logan Stanley. I think it wasn't as bad as last week with all the penalties in that regard, but I think the play wasn't as good as the Jets would have liked to see this week. I think he got burnt a few times, and that foot speed thing, like I said, sticks out. Lyss, who you got for trending down?
Yeah, I mean, I think you stole my thunder like a scooch. Just I'm gonna kind of cop out with this because this week was weird. Some guys were really good to start the week, or well, everyone is a little bit rougher. Some guys have really picked it up, some guys a little bit less so, but some of the guys who haven't picked it up as much were better earlier in the week. Right? Like I was kind of in between on what to choose for this. I'm going with Colin Miller. And not for any reason that's within his control, but Colin Miller is trending down right now. We have seen 3 consecutive games now with Colin Miller as a healthy scratch. And so 3 in the last 3. And then before that, 4 in the last 5. He hasn't played a lot in the last little bit. Value-wise, I guess, in this organization, trending down a little bit. I'm very fascinated. I thought he was a guy who had a lock spot in the lineup, right? Like, I really didn't see it happening. But I don't know how I feel about it. Everyone is kind of talking about Logan Stanley, and I understand that, there's some commentary about how that player is playing. I'm not gonna get into it. I'm pretty sure everyone knows how I feel at this point about the results that we've seen from the player and how far along, how many years of samples we have now. I don't see anything in that player the same way that some others might, but if they believe he is going to play a role for this team or be important for this team, playing him with Ville Heinola, like, I don't mind it. It's kind of funny. Like, it's interesting. It's like, it's almost like some weird like enemies to friends trope here, where it's like people have been pitting them against each other for years in the media space and in the fan space for the Winnipeg Jets. It's like, here, have both and shut up sort of thing, which and see which one comes out on top given the same opportunity. Granted, one of them has to play on their offhand, but all that's to say, that being at the expense of Colin Miller, I just find fascinating. I don't know how I feel about that, but he's certainly trending down in the sense of we're not seeing Colin Miller come in and play impactful NHL minutes right now. So I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a loser answer, but it is what it is.
No, it's not. I can assure you that. It's a good answer because I feel the same way. I was shocked when they first took him out of the lineup. I was even more shocked when they kept him out of the lineup. And I'm even more shocked today that he's still out of the lineup all these games later. Again, no insight. There's no morning skate today, but I think he will play today. I would assume. Second night of back-to-back. We'll see.
Now, but comment says in the chat here, Lyss, I thought Arnie said Miller was day-to-day injured. Is that true? I haven't seen that anywhere, but that is also part of my like theory. It's like maybe he's just like, I'm cool to take some time off, and we have some guys who
totally
like could play whatever, and Colin got a game, whatever. Like they have some guys who are itching to get some time. So if Colin Miller needs some time off, then that's fine. But is he hurt? Because that would explain a lot more, in my opinion.
If Scott O'Neill did say that, I missed it. I've not heard anything about that, but I do wonder if he is dealing with something minor. Again, like Mark Scheifele's dealing with something, we all know that, but he's the top line center, so they're not just going to take him out. He can play through it, whatever the case might be. For something with Colin Miller, if it's something like that, they can maybe just keep him out and have, like you said, Heinola and Stanley kind of take that third pair opportunity and maybe run with it. But I have not heard anything about that. No.
I was looking for this specific thread of tweets on my phone here, and I found it. The Twitter search function is not what she used to be, but it's not for that quote specifically, but I just wanted to bring up, you talked about trade deadline acquisition, like, the importance of playing with pace, whatever. And Murat pulled up some NHL Edge data earlier this year. This was from November 29th, so about a week and a bit ago. NHL Jets defenseman ranked by top speed this season. Hayden Fleury has the highest recorded speed of anybody on this team this year. Pionk second, Morrissey third, Miller fourth, whatever. Stanley is eighth. So in terms of all of the defensemen, that makes him last in terms of that. And then ranking them by most 20-mile-per-hour bursts this season. So, not just straight line speed, but quickness, whatever, to either break out the puck, exit, get back, whatever you need to do. Also in first, Hayden Fleury. Second, Morrissey. Third, Miller. Fourth, Heinola. And then you go down the list. In eighth, Stanley. And you won't be surprised to see that Stanley is eighth in both of these lists. And also that Dylan DeMello is sixth, seventh, whatever. He's in the bottom half on both of these lists as well. Like, the speed factor in the way the Winnipeg Jets play hockey is just massive at this point. And if you can't keep up with that, I think it's going to be a real struggle for some of these guys. And I think that list is pretty conducive to how a lot of us are feeling. Like you said, you listed Hayden Fleury as you're trending up because he's really taken this role and he's thrived. Part of it is because he skates well, right? And it's a bit of a cop-out. It is what it is. Like, I understand that everyone needs to skate well in the NHL, but you see the extra edge that it can give you when you're able to skate at that highest level.
Yeah, and he was my trending up pick. I do want to say there was a lot of love in the chat as well, speaking of speed and fast skating, for Brad Lambert. We talked about him off the top of the show. Lots to like there on how he's, trending up this week, especially over these last 3 games. He's really building chemistry with Cole Perfetti and playing better by the game. Excited to see what he does today in the game against Columbus. Lyss, let's get to the Four Nations rosters before we get to today's game and what we're expecting to see. We'll end the show with that. But the Four Nations rosters were released officially on Tuesday night, one of those nights in the middle of the week. What were your thoughts? No Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey makes the team, Kyle Connor and Connor Hellebuyck make Team USA. No surprises there with those 3 players making it specifically. But no Mark Scheifele. What are your thoughts on Team Canada and sans Scheifele?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, we had the locked players that there was no debating that they were going to make the team because it had already been announced that they were. And then there's that next grouping of players, the Sam Reinharts of the world, the Mark Stones of the world, guys who were surefire locks to make the team. Once you got outside of like 8-9 forwards on that team, it was genuinely such a toss-up for me that I can't be upset or shocked at basically any of the forward picks on Team Canada. Travis Sanheim and Colton Parayko, I find a little bit fascinating. I'm not going to lie. That one was something that was really interesting to me. But you can talk about Mark Scheifele in the same breath as you can talk about someone like Nick Suzuki, whatever, where it's like, of course they could make the team. Of course they would be excellent on that team. Connor Bedard as well. No kidding, they could have an impact on that roster. So could a lot of other guys that were left off the team as well. And so, Carter Verhaeghe, I don't think made the team. And you can see that they did a little bit of the more defensive structure with, Hagel and Cirelli and Konecny making the team and everything. I am not, feeling that Mark Scheifele was snubbed of a spot that he deserved by any means. I think he could have made the team, of course, but I feel that way about a lot of players. And Allison Lucan from the Seattle Kraken, who's one of my favorite people in hockey, she's incredible. She had a funny tweet that was like, "Hey, new rule. Every time you bring up someone getting snubbed from a Four Nations face-off roster now, also say who you're taking off. And I was
Right.
like, I completely agree, right? Because it's like the same
Yeah.
thing with the US. Like everyone's freaking out about like Tage Thompson and Cole Caulfield, whatever. If you're saying straight up 1-for-1, they're taking out Trocheck and Kreider, I agree with you, fine by me, sort of thing. But there's just so much of people being like, how could they possibly not bring this guy on the team? And it's like, okay, but if that means you're starting to remove the Sam Reinharts from the team, then no, it doesn't make
Exactly.
any sense, right? So that's kind of my long-winded take of saying I would have liked to have seen him on it just because I love when Winnipeg got some representation on these things, whatever. We still got some Winnipeg representation in Seth Jarvis, so that's pretty sweet. But
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like he was done like a massive disservice, you know?
Yes, I agree. I mean, Scheifele was on the bubble. I think we all
Yeah.
kind of knew it. Again, like Matt Hyman says here, is on the bubble. If, like you said, if you want to put him in, you have to take someone out. Clearly, they're going with the Jacob Stoller line of thinking that he brought up on Sunday Live a few weeks ago, that your bottom six has to be the best forecheckers in the world. And that's what they did. They took Team Canada's best forecheckers: Braden Hagel, Sam Bennett, Travis Konechny, Anthony Cirelli. Defense, forechecking, some grit in a short tournament. It is what it is. I mean, the Colton Parayko one, I don't hate. I think if you're going to take a defensive defenseman like they did instead of an Evan Bouchard,
Yeah.
I would have liked to see Mackenzie Weegar in that role instead of Parayko.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit better suited for that role. I don't mind the Travis Sanheim pick. I think he's also a big defenseman. I don't want to get in trouble
Joel
with
Farabee to come through your throat. Come on.
yeah,
Come on.
watch a game, right? Yeah. But I will say I don't hate that pick because he's also, like Parayko, a bigger defenseman that can skate and can actually move the puck well.
Yeah.
Up to these talented Canadian forwards, and I'm not really moved by that as well. Scheifele, you think one of the first players in the case of an injury, maybe? Yeah.
I think it depends on who the injury would be, right? Like, I think there's enough talent. And, you know, Gregory brings up in the chat that Elliott was shocked that 55 was left off. I don't think there should be any. I think the only shock on these North American, on any of these teams, I'm going to go as far as to say any of these teams, should be Tage Thompson, in my opinion. That's the only shock.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only shock. Cole Caulfield's not even a shock to me.
No.
Cole Caulfield didn't make our team at USA.
We didn't draft
together, right?
Cole. Yeah, we didn't draft
No.
Cole.
So Tage Thompson to me is a shock. Anyone else, if you say it is a shock that they didn't make the team, like, I feel like that's just a little bit too, and if you're just making content, whatever, I get it, but I feel like it's a little bit too dramatic, and I'm not trying to call it Friedman dramatic. That's not what I'm doing here, but I just feel it's a little bit too dramatic of a take for just how talented all these groups are, especially with the forwards. I think it really depends for injury wise who were, if someone were to get injured, who they are. I think they clearly have a plan. Like you said, they bring in these forecheckers, whatever. I think they're going to probably try and stick to those guns, and if that's the case, then they'll probably go in a different direction. But yeah,
Vincent Trocheck over Tage Thompson is the snub of the tournament.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
That is
yeah,
the snub.
And
like, that's
Sam Montembeault over Laurent Brossois. That one too. I'm just kidding.
Of course, yes. Actually, Logan Thompson's a
bit of a snub too, for sure.
Kind of shocking as well.
Well,
but yeah,
honestly, frankly, I saw, who was it that had a good tweet about it? It might have been Mike Bartner saying someone about the Washington Capitals. Pardon me. How many guys, like, because Tom Wilson was rumored to have made the roster early on. Obviously, not when things started. Like when the actual leak started coming through, whatever. Tom Wilson was spoken about. Dylan Strome is one of the top scorers in the league right now. John Carlson was on a lot of people, including our team's USA. Like, Washington low-key kind of got snubbed. And then Logan Thompson too, right? Like, those four guys right there all easily could have made their rosters, in my opinion. So kind of interesting and too bad for them because they're having such a fun season over there. So it would have been nice. But
they're the top team in the NHL as we sit here today before the games get going here on Sunday. I think the Wild and the Jets all have 40 points. Obviously, the Jets the only team with 20 wins.
Yeah.
Washington has 19. I think Minnesota has 18, and they've lost 4 games in overtime.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's those are the 3 best teams in the NHL as we sit here on December 8th. Who would have thought, right? Washington, Minnesota, and Winnipeg running the league. But yeah, that's the rosters are interesting, and I do want to ask this, and I know that we have an opposing viewpoint on this.
Oh,
who do
great.
you have
Let's
winning?
fight.
Who do you have winning the tournament? Who do you have winning?
Team USA. Team USA still wins. Actually, you know what? I'm so mad about the Kreider and Hrabchak picks that maybe they don't know. I think Team USA still wins. I like Team Sweden though. I think Team Sweden. I was looking. I didn't spend as much time looking at Team Finland and Team Sweden, frankly, just because the intersection of geographic area as well as lack of Winnipeg Jets even going near those rosters. Okay, sure, maybe for the Olympics we'll see some Rasmus Kupari and Billy Hanelup and some Elias Salmonson, but we'll have to see and sit and wait for that. So just for those main reasons, I haven't paid as much attention to them. But when they announced the rosters, Team Sweden's a little bit of a dark horse to me. I think they could cause, they could make some noise. Kishore saying Sweden wins. I'm kind of loving that. I love these takes. Like, I think it's great. I think USA takes it though. I do.
Team Canada's gonna win. That's my take. And here's why. Let me convince you in one scenario. I just want everyone to picture this. Chris Kreider and Vincent Trocheck and whoever else you want are on the ice. Okay. They just ice the puck. Over the boards comes McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, Makar, and Morrissey. Good luck. Like, that's a goal. Like, that's ending up in your net. Like, I just don't think any team in this tournament has the firepower to stop that. Like, goaltending can get hot. Goaltending can get cold. I'm not saying Connor Hellebuyck is not an advantage. He's a clear advantage in the net over what Team Canada has. But Team USA doesn't have that. They have superstars, but Canada's 5 best players are better than Team USA's 5 best players. And I think, again, Canada's bottom 6, very forechecking oriented, defense oriented. Yeah. I still think that Team USA ices the puck. Team USA takes a penalty. You're not stopping that power play. Point Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, Makar. Like, you're not stopping. Like,
the same thing for Team USA's power. You can say the same thing for all those power plays. How are you going to stop any of those power plays? Come on.
I don't know.
I know, and I get you. And listen, I think I agree with you, especially like in the sense of if it was just if you said the same thing you just said, and if you were saying, yeah, Kreider, Trocheck out there, whatever, and then out comes McDavid, like alone, like if too much of it was hinged on just one player, 2 players, the fact that you bleed into 5, like, gives me a little bit more, like, I understand the take, and I think I am maybe being slightly convinced, but frankly, it's also just because I want to be convinced. I do want Canada to win this tournament. So it's interesting, like, but again, like, if your whole thing is hinging upon, like, people are saying in the chat, McDavid going beast mode, like, that's not enough for me. If he does, of course, that is the most elite player in the tournament. It's not even close, but that's a big, like,
I still think, I think that even in a short tournament, if the top line is like Ryan Hart, McDavid, McKinnon, they can convincingly win their minutes against anyone. Like that's I think, and we talked about it when we drafted our rosters. The argument for Team Canada is that they have the 3 best players in the tournament in McDavid, McKinnon, and Makar, right? So I just think that if you, like, we saw how dangerous Colorado was against the Winnipeg Jets last year. I know this is best on best. It's completely different, but Colorado would put out McKinnon, Nichushkin, Rantanen, Taves, and Makar. And you just couldn't stop it, no matter what you did. Best defensive team in the NHL, best goalie in the NHL.
Guess I'll go just like F myself now. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, thanks.
Well, yeah. So you put out Reinhart, McDavid, McKinnon, Taves, and Makar. Good luck. Like, good luck. I just think that McDavid and McKinnon on the same line, you can't stop them. I really don't.
That's fair.
Don't. Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. So well, it'll be very interesting. And
Canada is favored in this tournament, even though everyone's picking USA. It's the trendy pick. And I feel like,
are you calling
I feel like it's basic? A hot take to yeah. Oh yeah. No, I feel like it's a hot take to take Canada, which feels weird, but they're the favorite. They have Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, and Kel Makar. Like, I don't know. I just don't think any team in the tournament's going to be able to stop Canada's 5 best players.
Yeah, no, like, I know. Let's say the fact that we're having such a lengthy and an animated discussion about it. Like, this is gonna be a fun tournament. I'm excited, and like, I think, I was talking to some people about this, and like, frankly, I understand that it's still a little bit gimmicky. This is an NHL All-Star game, but I'm sorry, there is a massive difference playing with some random like pink NHL logo that's like weirdly designed. It's like the Central Division or whatever versus your country's flag, the Hockey Canada logo. Like, I'm sorry, this logo like ignites a fire in me that is like like nothing else. Like, Canada forever. Like, it's like I screw the USA sort of, like, it's definitely like a different motivator for sure. And especially knowing that the Olympics are on the line as well is very interesting.
Yeah, the Canada versus USA hockey rivalry, whatever, when it's Canada USA, men's, women's hockey, whatever it is, that's the most like patriotic feeling as a Canadian, is cheering on Hockey Canada in a best on best. Like that's just the best. And Chris was asking, what day does this Four Nation tourney actually start? February 12th, I believe, is the first game. It's Canada, Sweden in Montreal. And then every team plays against each other once. It's a 3-2-1 point system. So 3 points for a win, 2 points for an overtime win, and 1 point for an overtime loss, and 0 points for a regulation loss, of course. And the 2 best teams just go straight to the gold medal game. There's no semis or anything like that. Every team plays each other once, and that is how the tournament's going to go. And that's when you're going to see Team Canada. Connor McDavid scored the golden goal. No, I'm kidding. This is the thing, though. The Olympics brings out that fire. I am interested to see, because I think players might go into it with the mindset that like, oh, this is just like an all-star game gimmicky thing. But the second you go down like 1-0 in the first period, it's like it's gonna flip. It's gonna be like, yeah, okay, yeah.
I think my thing is more just like in the Olympics or like in the Stanley Cup final, like you will kill someone if you have to, right? Like, and it's like I don't think that, like, in terms of like kicking it into high gear to go score a goal, but I'm just thinking of like the other aspect, the extracurricular aspect of the game. I feel like isn't going to be there as much, which it shouldn't be. Like, come on, guys, like let's be real here. But yeah. And AJ brought this up. Elliot Freeman brought this up as well. The ad breaks are usually 90 seconds. Here's another advantage, Lyss, why Canada's going to win. The ad breaks are usually 90 seconds. Apparently, they're going to be 2 to 3 minutes in this tournament. Advertising money, I guess, like selling more ad space. But that is a long time for Sam Reinhart, Connor McDavid, and Nathan McKinnon, and Cale Makar, and whoever else you want to put on the ice. You could put me on the ice at lefty to rest and come out against whoever you want. Put out your best five. 75% of the minutes in this tournament.
Connor McDavid's playing 30 minutes a night. The Oilers are going to be watching like this through their hands. They're going to be like, no, this is not good. But yeah, I don't know. I'm clearly there's some bias. There's some homerism here. We're currently on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Obviously, I'm going to
never claim Canada. Otherwise.
Well, I know, but I do genuinely believe that Canada's 5 is gonna have them in this tournament, have them in the finals, and it'll be close in that final game. It'll be so much fun to watch. That is for sure. Today's game, Lyss. Let's get back to the Winnipeg Jets. What are you expecting out of the Jets today? 5:00 Central, taking on the Blue Jackets at Canada Life Center.
Yeah, I'm excited for this game. I think, first and foremost, I think I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. It's not a secret. I love the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think they are so much fun. I've been like a legitimate fan of theirs, for years, since they drafted Pierre-Luc Dubois. We all know that whole saga, whatever, and then whatever. But right now, they just have a roster of awesome guys. Ken Johnson, Marchenko,
so fun to watch. Yeah,
Stillinger, like Chinakop, like they're all out there, just like these random 22-year-old boys going out there and playing like what was that hilarious comment the other day from that one broadcaster on TNT or something? Instagram hockey. They're just playing like fun shell hockey out there. Like they are so awesome. Sean Monahan in his return having like a career year. This team is so fun. They crack me up. I love them. I think I root for them. I hope for the best for them. I'm going to be going to the game tonight. I'm going to probably toss that Johnny Gaudreau jersey on for, for the memes, just for the support. I love the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're a below 500 team. They're not, they're fun. They're exciting, but they're exactly the type of team that you should be icing when you're rebuilding a franchise the way the Columbus Blue Jackets are. If I'm a Columbus Blue Jackets fan, I'm not sitting here thinking that my team's going to win a Stanley Cup this year. But I'm thinking that, man, oh man, am I excited for the time that they will, right? And that's, you should either be excited about the chance to win now or the chance to win in the future. And the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think, have done a good job with that. So I think they're fun. But with the momentum that the Winnipeg Jets have right now, and just like, their ability to kind of capitalize on the ice that the Chicago Blackhawks left for them yesterday, I think we could see a similar situation in this game. We saw that Winnipeg clearly had some form of book on them last time they played against one another. They knocked them right out of the park. So I think this is a game that, you know, if I'm a betting man, I'm putting money on the Jets in for sure. But I think if you're a hockey fan, if you like watching fun hockey, the Columbus Blue Jackets are kind of fun to watch. They're just kind of a ragtag group of young guys. They're lots of fun. So I'm really excited for the game today. I hope it's a good one.
Yeah, and you brought up all those talented young players that the Blue Jackets have. Denton Mateychuk as well in the pipeline waiting to come up. He's a really exciting left-hand shot defenseman prospect that
Braden Yeager's bestie.
Braden Yeager's bestie. And hey, top 2 pairings of Zach Werenski and Denton Mateychuk as your future top 4, pretty solid. Gotta say.
Werenski's having a year too. Oh my god.
Yes, he's been so good. The Jets did dominate the Blue Jackets 6-2 the last time that they played them. That was the Nikolai Ehlers hat trick on the road. So that was the Jets. That was in the middle of their hot streak where they were just dominating teams. Obviously, different circumstances today. But are you maybe looking at a player, a line that's going to have a good game? I'm looking at that Lambert, Perfetti, Nemeskov line. I thought they were really close a few times. Couldn't get much closer than the Lambert wide open net that he missed. So this is kind of of course, that I think that they might score today. But that line has been all around it, especially that game yesterday. And I think they get on the score sheet today. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the very top and the very bottom of the lineup. I'm looking at the top line. I want to see them capitalize and continue to build on some of the momentum from yesterday. You saw Gabe Velarde's reaction after that goal. It said it all. To me, that's a guy who really wants more from himself and more from his line. So I'd like to see them have a good game today. They're who I'm going to be watching for. And I'm also going to be watching the Stanley Hanel pairing should they play again today. I'm not 100% sure yet. Columbus is a chaotic team. This is a team that does not play a super heavy team structure. There's a lot of, depending on which line they're icing, they play a little bit of different hockey. They blend their lines pretty frequently. Like they move a lot. And I think this is going to be a little bit of a chaotic game. And it's the sort of thing that I think that top line can capitalize on that chaos, take a couple of jumps and that sort of stuff. I want to see how that bottom pairing manages it. So I'm very, very interested to see what kind of game Stanley and Hanel have should they play together again today.
Yeah, we'll see if they play. Choices TK did bring up earlier on that Eric Comrie. Here, let me get the comment so that I don't misquote. Hopefully Jets can score some goals for Comrie. He has played well. Comrie is going to play today. That was confirmed by Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press. He was on the road covering the Jets in Buffalo and Chicago. He's going to play today. We'll see on that third pair. I would not be shocked to just see us.
Oh, yeah, it's a back-to-back too. I totally forgot that they played yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so early yesterday. Well,
I wouldn't be surprised then if Miller is healthy, if we see like even a David Gustafson or something pop in there. And if, that's a good point. But regardless, I'm assuming we will see one of Hanel or Stanley. I really do think that one of them will probably play. So both of those guys, even individually, I want to see how they manage that for sure.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, this is going to be an exciting game. Hopefully the Jets are able to play like they did yesterday because that was one of their best performances of the season. Thank you everyone for joining us on WST Sunday live Sunday, 9 a.m. We are here every single Sunday. Make sure you hit that notification bell down below so that when we go live on Sundays, you don't miss it. You get that notification right on your phone and you can join us live in the chat. Thank you everyone for participating in our trending up, trending down segment. Second straight show doing that. We really love putting that together. And from Lyss, Jacob, and I, we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the game today, and we will see you all next Sunday. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the game.